And there's the DEI press secretary telling you that the DEI vice president is the future of the party here. And so the future looks kind of dim for the Democrats here, but this is no shocker either. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is.
In 20 seconds, it sums up the nature of the right-wing media machine and what they're doing. Whoa, I used my fancy new device to start the recording. I feel so cool. Hi, friends. Welcome. Happy, well, do we say happy Friday anymore? I
yes.
mean, it's, okay. You know what?
Yeah.
Joy is resistance. Happy Friday to all of you. Blueberry coffee in my cup. To my left, which maybe is your right, I don't know, is Andrew Whitehead. And then to my right or your left, I don't know, is April Ajoy. Good to be with all of you. Hello. That was such a weird intro. Whatever.
Good morning.
Hello.
I love
that
it.
was really chipper. Hello, everybody.
I'm really
I'm
trying.
Tim.
Listen, we all know what's going on. We were just saying before we started recording, we cannot keep up with this news cycle. 2 weeks ago, Trump had an assassination attempt on his life. Joe Biden was resolute in running for president. And 2 weeks later, Kamala Harris is probably going to become the nominee. And Joe Biden is stepping down, and JD Vance has said crazy shit. Let me just roll the stinger so we can hop into all of this. There's a lot to talk about. Here we go. Wow. Yeah.
What a world.
What a world. Andrew, how are you doing? It's good to see you, friend.
Good to see you both. Doing pretty good. Blue skies today.
Good.
Enjoying a cold brew, which I love.
Nice.
Vanilla sweet cream. It's a good start to my morning. Yeah, and there is too much happening right now. So practice self-care, everyone.
Well, that's the okay. Can we just pause on this subject for one second? I'm just thinking now, all the things that we didn't write down that I know we wanted to mention at some point. Netanyahu spoke to Congress yesterday. Major protests broke out. A lot of what he said was quite wild. So we could do a whole episode just covering that, right? We have the incredible tragedy, the murder of Sonia Massey by police. She was holding a pot of boiling water, and they shot her dead. Like it was. I've seen the body cam footage. It's abhorrent. It's terrible.
Terrible.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Her last words were, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And the cop was so. Even his words were violent towards her before he actually pulled the trigger. So that's happening. And then we have the political chaos that is 2024 so far with Trump and JD Vance. And now we have Harris stepping in as Biden steps down. There's a lot to cover. So, friends, I will just, as I always have said, we do our best to bring you as much news as we can in the time that we have while trying to keep up with it all. We can't cover every story in detail, but we're doing our best to really capture what's happening at the intersection of politics, theology, and culture. That's why we love bringing on Andrew Whitehead every, last Friday of the month. You come on, you're a sociologist, you track Christian nationalism, you wrote some amazing books, you co-wrote Taking America Back for God with Samuel Perry, which I do think, in my opinion, was the domino a couple years ago that really kicked off people paying attention to Christian nationalism and what it was. And you wrote another book recently called, oh my goodness, I have it right here. I knew it. American Idolatry. Here it is. Yeah, a great read, which also won an award. It's award winning.
Yeah.
I have my fancy screen. Let's see if I can do this. Boom. Okay, wait. Oh, I didn't do it the right way. It's okay. Boom, there it is. Close enough. There it is. Yeah. So it's great to have you, Andrew. It really is great to have you join us. It's truly a privilege.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I love being able to talk with you both and follow you both online. So yeah, it's always a highlight. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think let's skip the usual banter and pleasantries and just hop into it because there's so much to cover.
Did you pull that clip for him to blind react to?
No.
Damn it.
Okay, let me guess. Dang it. Let me guess what it is. Is it the she's wearing like the red hat and red pants?
You've seen it.
Yes. Honestly though, I could only watch like 6 seconds of it.
No.
Like, we've got to have you watch the whole thing. Hold on. I'm getting it,
April. I'm getting it.
You're getting it? Okay.
The music is so bad. Like how do they watch this and think, I'm going to post this on?
The beat is actually pretty good. The lyrics, though.
Oh, but the lyrics and
Oof.
like the delivery, it's like
Wait,
maybe I
where-
am
it's
just
not on
lame and
YouTube.
old, but like,
Oh,
like,
I've got it. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Just text it to me.
yeah.
Text it to you. I have it on Instagram. I have
I
got
just
it.
can't believe that there's like, yeah, let's put this online. This will
Should I
be
just
awesome.
should I just pull up your video, April, of you responding to it?
You can. You'll just see
Right.
my face.
I
in
haven't
it.
seen that
That's
yet.
fine.
That would be fun.
Hold on. Let me. I've got the actual one right here. I'll put it in
All
the.
right. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll put it in the Google Drive. Do you have access to that?
Yeah, or you could just text it.
Behind the
I
scenes.
can't text from
All
my
right,
computer,
right,
bro.
Because you know why? Because you don't have a Mac or an iPhone.
I do have
That's-
a Mac. I do have a Mac.
But you have an Android.
I don't have an iPhone. Yes, I have an Android. But
I would.
that was after I had an iPhone for 10 years, and I
How
was
dare you.
tired of continuing to pay. It kept up my monthly payment for my cloud storage, and Google was offering free storage, unlimited.
I need to know in the comments if you're Team iPhone or Team Android. And if you're
No,
Team
I
Android,
know I'm
just
gonna lose.
unsubscribe to the channel. Do us all a favor. And you know what? I'm
No.
sick of these Android people hopping
Listen,
into
Tim.
group chats with their green bubbles. You can't leave the group chat. You can't send audio messages. You can't send
No.
full resolution videos. I had to
No, I
make
rebuke
Andrew.
it.
I had to. Sorry, he's over here. I had to make Andrew download Voxer to make our group chat work.
Okay,
Which is
you
an
can
amazing
still
app, by the
group
way.
Chat.
Don't
You can still
don't
group
you
chat-
support
No.
this, Andrew?
I am
Don't you
representing
support
the
this?
people who refuse to give in to the man. Apple is the one that does not play nice, by the way. Apple
Whatever.
purposely
That's true.
does it so that people will buy iPhones because people like you shame green texters.
You know, when I used to work for Apple, we had a name for people like you, conspiracy theorists. Yeah, big bad Apple with their AirDrop and iMessage and encryption and security. Whoa, so bad.
Listen,
I'm
I'm
this
convinced
video?
that I put it in the Google Drive,
okay,
our
hold
shared
on.
Google Drive, the one that you made me start using.
Made you. It was to help. It's a seamless process. I love how
Anyway,
like 5
my-
minutes ago I'm like, let's skip the banter, and now we're bantering.
I know. Listen, my Google Pixel takes better pictures than any iPhone I ever
That
had.
is a lie from the pit of hell. I rebuke
Nope.
that in the name of Jesus. You know what? Do I have anything here I can use? Yes, I do, because I have sounds.
I
It
put
didn't work.
okay. Did you?
I don't
do you
have to
see
react
it?
to it. We can just move on.
No, I got it. I got it. I got it. It's
No,
right
I want
here.
this to happen. I've
It's
dreamed
got-
about this moment.
It's gonna happen. My technology is failing me, but it's gonna happen. Okay, hold on. Boom. Okay, get rid of that. There it is. Okay.
Oh god.
Friends, before I play this, let me just say there's a good chance that because we're playing this person's song, this video will become demonetized. So if you want to support the work that we're doing, you can give us a super chat or you can donate to support it. So that way this video is still, helps cover the cost to make it. But here we go. Blind react for Andrew.
Watch out the words that you speak.
My enemy was a friend of me. Conspiracies go very deep. Now jump shot in plain sight. Not everything is what it seems. Now tell me, what do y'all believe? Let me preach one time. He turned his head at the last second.
This is where I was out last time. I was like, I can't do it.
Ephesians 6:11. Every time they form their weapon, I'ma get up off the ground and raise my fist up just to let them know I'm fine. But they never learn their lesson. Got the hand of God against them. When I
Oh my
look right
God.
at the camera, know it's time. Let every man of God discern the time.
I really love
You like
The-
that? You thought that beat
the
was
creative energy of rhyming time with time.
good? That was
really-
that was way
Top shelf.
worse than
Yeah.
than the I'm standing with the chosen one. At least I had like a
It
hook.
actually is. Yeah.
That was horrible. That was not even a listen. Not to,
Like
not
I'm
to-
kind of sweaty because I feel ashamed for her. Like
It's so I know she was so sincere. She's
They
in
always
it.
are.
She,
They always
she
are.
was like, "This is
like
it."
the like
I was sincere wearing my abortionist homicide T-shirt, skateboarding around my town at age 15, but doesn't mean it wasn't cringy or not good.
Fair. I was sincere when I sang "America Say Jesus"
Yeah.
on the Jim Baker show. So
Whoa.
That's good. April, I
Okay.
do need a cut of that so we can play it for people on the YouTubes.
Yeah,
Because
fair. Oh.
what have we done? Hey, who knows? Maybe this girl in 10 years from now will be deconstructing, and she'll be on our show, and we can
Yeah.
talk about it and all laugh together. You never know. Of course,
You never know.
I would be then 45, which makes me. Andrew,
No,
how old are you?
I don't.
I am 41.
Okay.
So,
yeah, April,
you're
how old are
young.
you?
You're never supposed to ask a woman her age, Tim.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm 30. I'm 36.
Yeah, I mean, in a decade from now, 40. Okay. You know
Yeah,
what?
I don't know
Let's
if I'll
just-
be on this a decade from now.
Dear God, I hope that there's not the news. The news is still not like it is today. I
Yeah,
hope there's no need for us in 10
I
years.
don't know.
That's
at
true.
This rate,
Work
who knows?
yourself out of a job. Yeah.
Okay, listen, I am going on vacation right after this recording, so I want to get through this so I can turn my mind
Fair.
off for a few days.
Yeah,
Is that fair? Am I
totally.
allowed to say that? Okay, cool. So let's get into it. I think the first thing we should cover probably is the RNC recap, because we did tell people that we were going to keep an eye on some things and try and cover some of it. Now, again, I know it feels like a month ago, but the reality is that it was literally less
Last
than a week
week.
ago. Yeah, it was a week ago. So one thing we
Unbelievable.
weren't able to cover on the show was they really brought out a star-studded lineup. Hulk Hogan. This is kind of like a little montage of just some of the things that were said by different people. Let's start with Hulk Hogan first, see what he had to say, and maybe we'll give our reaction after that. Oh, it didn't play. Try it again.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again. So all you criminals, all you lowlifes, all you scumbags, all you drug dealers, and all you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
Hold on. Listen to this transition. Keep it going.
Okay, really
This is
quick.
the
I'm just
actual-
watching Andrew's reaction. I'm dying. Your jaw is dropped.
Hold on.
Oh,
this
man.
is the person that this is a continuation. This is who follows Hulk Hogan,
Okay,
which I
okay.
just found
Ladies and
hilarious.
gentlemen, please welcome the president and CEO of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association and president of Samaritan's Purse,
Wow.
the Reverend Franklin Graham.
Oh my gosh. That's who comes up.
That alone. It's like,
What?
who
It's a
planned that?
yeah. Who's looking at the schedule? It's like, you know what? Let's do a Hulk Hogan rally, have him pump up the crowd, and then we'll bring
Rip
out
his
let's
shirt.
see, Franklin Graham. Franklin Graham will be a great, not Kid Rock, which would make a lot more sense. Like Hulk Hogan introing Kid Rock is how you keep the energy going, and then you just go to Franklin Graham.
Wow, wow.
Wow. Can I just say briefly, the only real experience I have with Hulk Hogan, now this is a deep cut for some of you, is watching the Three Ninjas movie. Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain. It's like a kids movie back in the 90s that of course I loved. And he's like one of the co-stars in the movie. He has to help the kids save a theme park, an entire theme park, from a bunch of ninjas who want to take over the theme park and hold it hostage so the owner pays them money. So I'm not a big hey, that's a serious plot, okay? And there were high stakes in that movie. There were high freaking stakes. I just rewatched it a week ago with Sarah. She said that if I ever make her watch it again, she will divorce me. So
Fair. That's a valid reason.
I'm just saying,
Clear
though,
communication is the foundation of a strong marriage.
she was very clear. Like, there was no answers or buts. So I don't really have a lot of experience with Hulk Hogan besides that. But it did feel like, maybe I don't know. It just felt like he was playing to a different type of crowd that comes from a different era of culture, because it didn't really do it for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, that's the thing too with some of this. Like I watched that and I'm like, okay, this is a person that just desperately wants to be in front of a crowd again and like has some angle, right, to get attention. Like I just
Right.
can't see any other angle to that. But that's kind of the whole brand now, is like who can latch on and just kind of get in front of people. Yeah, it's wild.
You know what's
There are-
interesting? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there were moments while watching this, and I don't even know if we need to watch Franklin Graham's.
Oh, I think we
Right.
do.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, after him, you have Kid Rock, and there's like fire blazing, which we could show, and like American flags. And then he introduces Dana White,
Yes.
who
from
is
UFC.
the CEO of UFC.
Yeah.
And when I was watching it, because I hate myself, I literally felt like we were also simultaneously watching the season finale of The Boys. I don't know if y'all do either of
I
you
haven't
watch
watched
The
it,
Boys.
but I'm somewhat familiar.
Okay. Well, it is. I feel like I just need a disclaimer. Do not watch it unless you are okay with like really, really gory, and just raunchy. Like it is a twisted show. But
What kind of Christian are you, April? My gosh. You know what? I think that you need to repent for that.
But
There you go. Yeah. Say you're sorry.
okay, I repent
I'm
for
just
watching
kidding.
The
I'm
Boys.
just kidding.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, but so what The Boys does is it's a kind of satirical look at modern day American politics, and it like ups the ante to the point where it's like there's no way this would be real. But watching the RNC literally felt like The Boys. Like it felt like satire. It didn't feel like real
So
life.
true. Yeah.
It seems to be very, and Andrew, I would like maybe some of your thoughts on this. It seems to be very much centered around a personality and not really a platform. Like there was a lot of talk around mass deportation. Okay, I guess that's a weird platform to run on, but like there wasn't a lot of talk from what I've heard of, policies and hey, here's what we need to do to make America great again. We need affordable wages, or here's the plan. It seemed like the whole event was centered around the person of Trump. Now, I understand that this is that Trump spoke at this rally right after these people introed him, and it was his first time speaking since an assassination attempt. I totally get that. I get that for sure. But even if that didn't happen, it's still, the whole world is still centered around Trump and Trumpism. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen in like other parties or political platforms, but Joe Biden stepped down, and the base in the Democratic world seems much more enthused and happy that Harris is kind of taking over. I mean, she did a record amount of grassroots fundraising. I think 900,000 new donors in 24 hours. So again, it doesn't seem like that world is based around the person more than the issues or the platform. Do you have any thoughts on that? As far as like, is that a thing in Christian nationalist world of like they look for certain people as opposed to certain platforms or policies?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's really true, where it was true in 2016 and 2020, and it's only grown stronger, where the takeover of the RNC around Trump is complete, right? His personality and brand is that RNC. And so as an institution, an organization operating, it's actually really weak because they couldn't push back in any way. And there were folks that were complaining about what they did say the platform would be of the RNC, because it was just complete Trumpism, right? And so they were upset. And then you look across the way at the Democratic fold, and not to say that they're this super high functioning organization at times, but when you think of what just happened as an institution, they're functioning, right? And there are people that like it, there are different folks and powers distributed and all of that took place. So it's like night and day when you look at both. And when we talk about Christian nationalism, one of the key elements is comfort with authoritarian social control, right? And there's this idea of the world's a chaotic place, and we need a strong ruler and strong rules to come in and enact order. And so it's set up for a person to say, I am the only one that can come in. I am the only one that can save you. I'm the only one that can lead us, that type of thing. And so the fact that they're attracted to strongmen, whether it's Trump or like kind of these little love letters to Putin and Orban, right? These other authoritarian leaders, right? That's a whole thread within Christian nationalist discourse. And so that's 100% true.
I think you do raise a good point, because the DNC, even though it was messy and very last minute, they did pivot, right? Like they actually pivoted.
It's pretty incredible.
As of this recording, what's 4 months out from the election, they actually pivoted, which is impressive. And there's a lot of commentary on, some people feel like Joe Biden or President Biden has really been slighted during this. I understand that, but like the reality is they changed course, and it seems like, at least initially, it reinvigorated their base. So I think that is a good point to bring out, because it seems like in this case, Trumpism has taken over the RNC, right? I mean, think about what wasn't Paul Ryan a vice president nominee at one point? Mitt Romney, right? Those people they weren't even at the RNC this year. They were nowhere to be found, because they've been totally pushed out by your Lauren Boeberts, by your Marjorie Taylor Greens, by your Trump, Charlie Kirk types, right? Charlie
Kirk
spoke at this event.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at the RNC. So it is kind of a different just a different approach, I guess we can say, putting it as neutrally as possible between these two parties so far. Yeah, that's good.
And it was interesting, too, generally speaking, on the RNC, there was that I saw, any policy that they were pushing. It was just big personalities for the most part, and then just really running down, pushing how much they hated the current administration,
right?
And
migrants,
illegal immigration. They brought that up a lot, but there was no policy of, Trump gets out there and all of them get out there and they say, we're going to make America great again. They say that over and over and over and over again, but there's no real plan on what they mean by that. I mean, there is Project 2025.
There is. Yeah, we have seen some of the ideas, and they're terrifying, right?
Yeah.
But they're really hidden from Trump has distanced himself from Project 2025 many times over, because he knows, and his team knows, how bad it's polling with Americans. And so I'm all about, tie that thing to his ankles and let him sink, because no matter what they say, the Heritage Foundation is one of the biggest sponsors of the RNC. J.D. Vance talks to people at the Heritage Foundation. I mean, and like we said, a few weeks ago, April, the Heritage Foundation would not spend 4 years, tens of millions of dollars, building networks with 80 other conservative organizations, all which are all in the tank for Trump, to then have Trump say, "Oh, never heard of them. Oh no idea. No, that's way too extreme.
Totally.
No way, Jose. That's not how this works."
Well, and Trump gave the keynote speech at one of the Heritage Foundation conferences, where he even pitched they're going to come up with a plan and it's going to be great. And Project 2025 is that plan.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Right.
And now he's like, I don't know who these people are. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, I think, the more that we can do, especially with y'all's platforms, to highlight, this is what Project 2025 is, or even different parts of it, and help equip people to be able to say to their independent / maybe more Republican leaning friends and family, hey, have you heard of Project 2025? Yeah, it literally says they want to do this. And getting that out there, I think that is so important, because it's a 900-page document that didn't just happen by accident, right? We don't just create those for fun.
No, right? Yeah. No. Whoops! Here's a suggestion. 900 pages.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going. So Hulk Hogan comes out, tears his shirt, WWE style. I don't know the difference, so don't come at me in the comments. And then after that rousing performance, we bring on Franklin Graham. Let's see what he had to say.
Good evening. I've got the hardest job tonight. I have to follow Hulk Hogan. But I stand here tonight as a private citizen who loves this country. President Trump had a near-death experience. No question. But God spared his life.
That rhetoric
when
again.
President Trump rose from that platform, he rose with his fist raised in strength, showing America his unshakable resolve to fight for them in this nation. I cannot explain why God would save one life and allow another one to be taken. I don't have the answer for that. But one thing I do know is that God loves us, and he wants us to be with him in heaven one day. For as long as I've known President Trump, I've found him to be a man of his word.
Pause. For as long as I've known him, I have found Trump to be a man of his word. You've got to be Frank. Frankinator. Like, you cannot be for real here. You can.
So after he says this, his proof of that is that he said he would appoint conservative justices, and he did.
There it
and
is.
that's how he was
fact
a man
check
of his
true.
word.
Yeah.
Andrew, when you hear speeches like this from Franklin Graham, what do you think? Because I hear a lot of, first off, really bad theology, and just when Trump rose from rose from the stage, or from being shot at, that language rose. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but to my evangelical ear, I just correlate that to Jesus rising again. Like, I'm not saying it was even intentional, but I just hear it.
Yeah, no, it's through and through. And I mean, honestly too, though, like looking at Franklin Graham and then thinking about how we got to where we are now, right? And the role that his father, Billy Graham, played through the 20th century. So Kevin Kruse's book, One Nation Under God, is great, right?
Such a good book.
Like, you read that and you really see like Billy Graham picked up the baton from his forebears like Billy Sunday. And then Christian nationalism was all a part of what they were doing. And then he handed it off to the moral majority in the 70s and 80s. And, so Franklin Graham is a part of this lineage and history of, Protestant, evangelical, mainline Christians were a part of this too, of really pushing this idea of, a nation, our nation has to abide by particular beliefs and policies in order to be blessed by God. Like, that's all been a part of it for decades. This isn't new, and Trump isn't new. He's part of this lineage, and Franklin Graham is too. So I think some of that history helps really bring it into focus and recognize that this has been a part of it, and that rhetoric and language really does resonate, right? It's a part of it. Yeah.
Cool. Let's keep going with this speech. See what else he has to say.
Things that he said he'll do, he did.
Like
in
building the wall.
2016, he said he would defend religious liberty. And guess what? He did.
How?
Our Heavenly
Father,
that's
a good question.
Here's
we
the prayer.
come before you this evening with grateful hearts. Thank you for saving the life of President Donald J. Trump. In his own words, it was you and you alone who saved him. We pray for the others that were injured on Saturday, for the family who lost their loved one. You have blessed this country more than any country in the world. Sadly, as a nation, we have forgotten who is responsible for all the freedoms, the liberties, and the bounty that we enjoy.
Yes.
It is all
American
come for you.
exceptionalism.
Yeah, right. And Trump.
You are a great God. And we ask that if it be thy will that you will make America great once again. And we ask that you'll unite our hearts, bring us together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we pray this in the mighty name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Amen.
Wow. Wow. Okay, we'll get to Kid Rock in a second. So, wow, what a prayer! I just think a lot about, and April, you and I have talked about this off the air often. I don't understand how Franklin reconciles the Jesus of the four Gospels and the systems and the world that Franklin claims God is supporting and the people that God's supporting. To be clear, I am very happy that Trump is not dead. We've said that. I had a whole video, a whole monologue from last Wednesday on why we stand against any kind of violence, including when it happens to people that maybe we stand opposed to politically. Okay, so I'm happy that, yes, Trump did not die. I'm heartbroken that Corey did. But Franklin like weaves that kind of common idea of like, yeah, that was bad, and we were happy that he's alive, and then ties it back to God, thank you for being responsible for sparing his life, and essentially, saying, I don't know why you killed Corey, but hey, your will be done here. Yeah, I kind of out of my hands. And then at the end, the other thing that I thought was interesting was he said, if thy will be to make America great again, like so be it, something like that. But Franklin doesn't really believe that, because this whole time that Joe Biden's been president, he's been against everything that he's done. But was that God's will also? Like, is it God's will that President Biden got elected, or wasn't it? Because if it is God's will, then why are you trying to thwart the will of God? So this rhetoric, I found, theologically falls apart very quickly, and it's really code for whenever our guy is in power, God's doing great work. Whenever our guy loses, the enemy is trying to take the country from God's grasp. It all comes back to them and their power and their control.
And I just the whole, like, if it's your will, make America great again. Like, that phrase alone, which I'm sure, we've talked about before. But when was America great?
Yeah.
For anyone besides white men.
Right.
Like, when are they
100%.
what are they wanting to go back to?
Right.
Exactly.
Give me the date and the cultural moment that you want. Is it back when we were, when our whole economy was based on race-based chattel slavery? Was it when we were, imparting segregation laws? Is it when we were colonizing the land from indigenous people and sending them on long walks, killing most of them? Like, tell me the time frame we're talking about that you think we should go back to, where God had his hand on the country. And now today, God does not. Like, I need the specifics, right? I mean, I'm guessing, Andrew, you just see this and you go, yeah, this is how the propaganda of Christian nationalism works. You don't need specifics. You just need ideas and concepts to be very broad to actually be ingrained in someone's mind to think about, yes, we have to go back, but without any actual specifics.
Yeah, totally. No, I think, narrative is a key part of cultural,
yes.
The cultural framework of Christian nationalism. And narrative is a story, and people want to feel their story and feel anchored in a narrative. And that's been a key part of it. And it's a key part of nation building, right? Like, it isn't as though America, this is what I always try to kind of highlight too for folks, is like, there's nothing unique about Christianity in the fact that it's been used in such a way, like with Christian nationalism. And there's nothing unique about America in the fact that religious nationalism is powerful here. Like, it happened across history. It happens in other countries. It happens with other world religions. And so it isn't as though there's something wrong necessarily with, or I mean, there are things that are wrong necessarily with it all, but there's nothing unique or exceptional about the fact that we have it here. And we see those manifestations elsewhere too. And so, those narratives are a key part of it. And that will, that's going to continue. It's always going to be a part of nations and nation building and all of those things.
Andrew, do you know who Scott Coley is?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in his book,
his new book is awesome.
I got it. Okay. Let me just say, shameless plug here for Scott. I interviewed him recently. That interview will drop in a few weeks. But you know how it goes. You get a bunch of books all the time. You try and read what you can. I picked this one up and I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so freaking helpful. Yes. And he talks about in the book what he calls is a legitimizing narrative. This idea, it's stories that people tell themselves that's not based on reality. What is that? Your endorsement?
On the back.
There you are. Perfect.
I read it.
So a legitimizing narrative,
awesome.
and Andrew, you can flesh this out better than I could, but my understanding is essentially it's the myths that we tell ourselves to reinforce current hierarchies where people who benefit from use them or use these narratives to keep things the status quo, right? It's this idea that, hey, we tell this story, and that story in action keeps us on top and keeps people where we want them on, like the ladder of hierarchy and so on and so forth. And I think that this prayer that Franklin Graham gives kind of reinforces one of these legitimizing narratives of God, you gave us this nation. Our nation was great. It's not great anymore. We have to take back the country. And our strongman, our authoritarian leader, Donald J. Trump, is the person to do that for us. But what's he really saying? We don't like the multiculturalism, pluralist, religious pluralism society that has been forming over the past couple of decades. And so we have to maintain our right to be at the top of this society, dictating laws and morals and norms. And our man Trump is actually going to be the one to do that. That's how I interpret it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think a key part of it too is with Christian nationalism or any ideology, it is strongest when it's unquestioned, right?
Yeah.
When people don't see the water that they're swimming, like the fish and swimming in water, they can't describe it. It's similar where when we all just agreed that this was a Christian nation and the things that made us feel most comfortable in this society were taken for granted, that's when it's most powerful. So when that comes under change, right? And there's real change happening, demographic, religious diversity, all of that's taking place. And it's true that with change comes uncertainty. And for a lot of folks, that's uncomfortable. And so we should, I know you all too are really good about this, recognizing that, yeah, there's real fear and uncertainty that people feel. So then how do we respond to that if you're a person of faith, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it something where we give into that fear or give into lies, misrepresentations? How does our theology need to change? Can theology change, right? Like we've all been on a journey, but for some folks, they've been told that like changing and uncertainty are sins. And like, you're not a true believer if you feel these things. And so I think helping folks with kind of setting aside that baggage too, is just a part of the long game, right? Of dismantling ideologies like this.
I remember too being in high school and being in youth group, and literally they train you. They really enforce of like, don't change your beliefs when you go to college. Be steadfast, be strong in your faith. And so when you are taught that you almost need to put on armor to defend against new ideas and an open mind. And like, literally I had a journal when I was in high school that I titled, I just like wrote my little political thoughts in, that I titled it, "When Life Gives You Lemons, Throw Them at a Liberal." Just stupid. I know. We've come a long way. But in it, I should repent for that every week. But I wrote in that, and I genuinely believe that Satan's greatest trick was convincing someone to have an open mind.
Totally.
Literally. Like I believe that. And that is something that is being taught to young people. And so that's why there is such a war on education too, because they view education as indoctrination. But when in reality, education is indoctrination. Like it's undoing the indoctrination.
Right.
But,
Absolutely. Well, how about a palate cleanser? So this
was the most the boys moment, by the way.
After Franklin Graham gives this prayer to Almighty God, Kid Rock takes the stage. I don't know
if this was right after Franklin Graham. There might have been a buffer or two.
Okay.
But regardless, doesn't matter.
Yeah, in the same general session.
Yes.
Here we go. Let's hear what Kid Rock said. Uh-oh, it's not playing. Hold on. I can do it. Technology.
Take the stage. I need everybody to stand up. I need everybody to put a fist up in the air. Everybody, get a fist up in the air. Now follow me.
Wow. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we just pause? I don't know.
So
I don't
Melania
want to humanize
sitting.
people. It's a little awkward.
I will
The whole
say
thing's awkward.
the shots of the crowd, especially during this song, are some of my favorite because it is
they are.
a lot of offbeat older white people trying to get into Kid Rock.
What do we all think Melania really thinks about all of this? Like deep down, like what does she think about this whole thing that she's been sucked up into? Because I have questions for her. So many questions. So she's sitting down, and her two sons are standing up, and one of them, Trump Jr., has his fists in the air like Kid Rock declared it to be. Oh, stepsons, sorry. Yeah. Anyway, okay, we'll keep going.
Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say somebody scream. They want to see us cry.
Look at the fire.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Is this a new
okay.
song that he wrote for this?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't have
pretty
deep
sure.
knowledge of his discography.
Wait, really? You're not a deep hardcore Kid Rock fan? I will say, back in the day, he had some pretty catchy tunes. Like it's not like he's famous for a reason. His stuff reaches a certain demographic for sure. But it has been kind of sad to see the trajectory because this song, maybe he wrote it last minute. I don't know. It's just not that great.
I do think this was one of his songs. He kept being,
and he kind of
there were
tinkered
actually
with it?
verses and stuff, and then he would go back to fight, Trump.
Gotcha. That's what
I'm
I
not
figured.
a big Kid Rock person either. So.
All right.
So do we all, do we want to go through a little bit of Trump's speech at the RNC, his first speech since the assassination attempt, or do you want to skip that and go right to JD Vance, or just do both? I mean, I'm down for whatever you think is best, but we can at least maybe hit a little bit of Trump's speech and then get into JD Vance if you want to.
Do you have to leave, Andrew? How long do you have?
I will have to leave soon. So maybe if
let's do JD Vance.
Vance, and then you guys can follow up with Trump maybe.
Cool. All right, that's good. So, all right, friends, let's get into this person right here, JD Vance. Now, to be clear, I am working on, potentially with Kevin Carnahan. He was just on the last episode doing a 3-hour live with me, going through Stephen Wolf's speech that is arguably the most racist speech I've ever heard. Kevin said that Stephen Wolf's racism is so bad that it's more narrow than the KKK. And it's true. Like, we went through the whole thing. It was... You can go back and watch it. It will come out on podcast this upcoming Wednesday. So if you haven't seen it in your podcast feed, friends, that's why. But I'm talking to him because he's really interested in JD Vance and who he is and his views. So I'm working on more of a deep dive on who this person is and some of his perspectives. But this actually is really worth highlighting here. And Andrew, this was really your idea. Do you want to kind of tee up this clip and then we'll watch it and get your thoughts?
Yeah, so this was just earlier this week, I think, where he made a couple stops on the campaign trail in the Midwest here. And I actually think he's in Indiana today. And so is, I think, Vice President Harris. But anyways, with this kind of short interaction, I definitely didn't listen to the whole speech because there's other things in life to do. But I had heard about this clip where he is responding to apparently something Harris said about him. And he kind of has this last one-liner that really stood out to me. And as we kind of learn about Vance and knowing, his religious tradition and past and what he embraces with Christian nationalism, there's kind of a whole story here that I think we can kind of unpack, and it's kind of useful because we're going to hear a lot more of this type of rhetoric going forward. So
yeah, for sure. All right, here we go.
But what happened last week?
Oh, that's not right. What happened to my thing? Let's try this again.
Holster.
There we go. Yeah.
Kamala Harris said something to the effect that I have no loyalty to this country.
Oh, there you go. What have you done other than collect a check?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it too is like, I don't even know what he's referring to, what she said. So that would be really interesting as well, is like, how is that twisted? But even if she had said something in that realm, when I hear him say collect a government check for the past 20 years, there's a couple of things that jump out. So one, to kind of set the table, is that with JD Vance, he is Catholic, and kind of a part of this whole kind of world that's kind of coming out within Catholicism, attached to Christian nationalism, this kind of integrationalism, right? And this idea of they want many of the similar things as kind of white conservative evangelicals and Christian nationalism want, right? Christianity really informing, or this particular expression of Christianity really informing policies, all of those things. There's a really great piece in Religion News Service by Ruth Bronstein, who's a fellow sociologist. She's writing about Catholic Christian nationalism having a moment in the U.S. And it really lays out beautifully kind of the history there, because we go back 100 years and Catholics are like racialized as non-white at that point too. And Catholicism is like, anti-Christian. The KKK hated Catholics, but all of this started to shift. But even as recently as in the 1960s, right? Going back to Franklin Graham and his lineage, Billy Graham like pushed lies and different things. Like he was working behind the scenes to really make it where don't vote for JFK because he's Catholic, right? So that's relatively recent history. So, but then we see with the 1970s kind of this merging where Catholics now are part of this religious right, and this has come into being. And so Vance is kind of a part of this world. And so that kind of lays the groundwork of this Christian nationalism. Now, when I hear him say, collect a government check for the past 20 years, instantly I started thinking of some of the various studies that we have that I've been a part of or others writing about Christian nationalism, where there's kind of three elements that this brings out. So one is the connection of Christian nationalism with race and racial ideology. So as kind of I've shared on here before, one of the key cultural elements of Christian nationalism is this desire for strong ethno-racial boundaries around who is a true American. Right. So true Americans generally are kind of imagined as white, natural born citizens because this country was made by those men, for those men and their families, and the benefits and civil rights afforded to American citizens, they'll have easiest access to. And other groups, as they're kind of further away from that center, have a harder time. So race is a part of this. And then I also hear gender. Right. Because going back in more recent history with Reagan in the 80s, another cultural element that's closely intertwined with Christian nationalism is gender, where God's design for this country is men leading, women supporting and following, and families are heterosexual. They're committed to having children, kind of this pronatalism, right? All of this is true. And so in a paper I wrote with Sam, we find that people that embrace Christian nationalism have really strong gender traditionalist views, right? So they're more likely to agree with statements like men are better suited emotionally for politics than women. It's God's will that women care for children, all of these things. And there's a past quote that Vance said about Harris and others, that they're like these childless cat ladies who are running the country and they're obviously miserable, right? So it's like a lot of
by the way, is a very common trope in the Charlie Kirk Turning Point USA sphere. Like this is echoed throughout that world broadly in right-wing media. Matt Walsh echoes this notion, the idea of being a cat lady, etc. So very common trope. Very common.
Yeah, they must be miserable because they're not married to a white man, or they don't have kids or whatever.
That's right.
Right.
No,
and so
actual things said from the stage at Turning Point USA events, 100%.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's this gendered aspect too, where like, oh, she's just been collecting a government check, but kind of pointing to like, you know, what is she doing actually working in this sphere? So then the last part of this too that we have evidence for is how Christian nationalism connects to who has the right or privilege to the benefits of citizenship, right? And so part of that is whether it's social services or working for the government, right? And collecting a check, right? Are you actually worthy to be able to do that? So there's a sociologist, Josh Davis, a student of Sam Perry's, who had a really great paper where he was looking at, we have tons of evidence of kind of overt forms of racism and beliefs with Christian nationalism, right? That like blacks are inferior to whites, all this other stuff. But he's looking at more covert forms, and he thinks about in this idea of, well, who has the right to, or how do Americans, white Americans specifically, who embrace Christian nationalism, how do they view government support in the form of whether it's kind of welfare or border control or law enforcement? And he finds that white Americans that embrace Christian nationalism are much more likely to want to limit or do away with welfare, which is racially coded as benefiting minorities.
Right,
and
even though statistically it's not true. 43% of welfare recipients are white, to be clear.
Yeah, totally. A greater proportion of those that receive it are white. But then more likely to support border control or law enforcement, which they see as kind of coded as controlling minorities. Right. And so when he's talking about and saying that, you know, Harris is unworthy because she just has collected a government check. You know, what I started to think about with these three areas and all the research we have, that embracing Christian nationalism he's really kind of pulling and kind of playing this resonant note of this idea of minority women, and going back to Reagan and this idea of welfare queens that, again, has no empirical support, but minority women receiving something they shouldn't from the government, right? And so this intersects with the racialized and gendered aspects of Christian nationalism. So the idea is that this country was made for and by white men and their families, and the benefits of citizenship really are reserved for them, or they should have the easiest access to that. But of course, then the irony is that Vance has collected a government check for a while now.
Right.
He's running for office so that he wants to continue to collect that government check. But the idea is that in a properly Christian nation, that's fine for a white man, right? But for a minority woman, that is questionable. So just even that word, right, it really brings up, he doesn't have to say racial or even gendered things, but like it's resonating on that level. The dog whistle is there.
100%.
And so for the people that are receiving this, Republicans, conservative evangelicals that are more likely to embrace Christian nationalism, more likely to support the Republican Party, right? It's going to pluck those notes. And again, it's a part of that narrative that's really strong and powerful. And so, yeah, that was what I had heard, and some of what I wanted to share a little bit as we hear more of this rhetoric going forward. This connects to that work that people have been doing around Christian nationalism, and there's empirical support to kind of show why this is so powerful.
100%. I do want to just briefly say for the audience, I did do a pretty deep dive on what's called the trad Catholic movement with an actual Catholic priest responding to Harrison Butker's quite crazy speech, because it plays along the same lines of what J.D. Vance is doing. So you can watch this on YouTube, or it's episode number 269 on the podcast. But you're right, Andrew. I mean, that's absolutely a thing. And I really appreciate you coming on and kind of helping people make the connection between, for some people it might go right over their heads. Like, I don't get it. Why would he say that? Why would he make a comment about Vice President Harris just collecting a check for 20 years without having the ears to hear the notes that are in harmony with the words that Reagan has said, and this whole idea of welfare queens, and that people who are not white are just milking the system, right? It's incredibly inappropriate. And I also think it might be a good time then, since we're here, to kind of talk about some of the attacks already around Vice President Harris's either skin color or I guess sexual history, I guess we can say, or whatever. It's been wild to actually see the level of blatant racism and sexism being aimed at Kamala Harris, even though we just started. I mean, I want to give an example of this, actually. Here's a clip from Fox and Friends, or Fox Business. Here's what someone said. It is so disgusting, but let me just play it anyway, and then we'll kind of give our commentary.
And there's the DEI press secretary telling you that the DEI vice president is the future of the party here. And so the future looks kind of dim for the Democrats here, but this is no shocker either. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is. And the party's going downhill if it's in her hands.
That was tough. That was harsh.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, in 20 seconds, it sums up the nature of the right-wing media machine and what they're doing. The idea of calling anyone a DEI hire really at this point is just code for using the N-word. I mean, it's so clear what they're doing, how they're trying to disparage people based on these dog whistles that they continue to find and create. Almost at breakneck speed. Just a few years ago, it was CRT. Now we moved on from CRT. That's no longer a threat, apparently. It's no longer being taught in public schools, whatever. And now it's DEI hires. And Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, is now officially a DEI hire. And then he says something so gross. He takes what has gone as off as a viral video. We talked about this last week, April, right? Of this girl making a comment that is sexual in nature, and then applying it to Harris, trying to say that the only reason why she's here is because she slept her way up to the top. It's so interesting. It's just so fascinating to me that while we actually have data of former President Trump being so sexually promiscuous with all kinds of people, cheating on wives, sleeping with adult entertainers, lying about it, his sexual history never gets brought up by these people. He's never called something like what we just heard here. But for Harris That's the first thing that they start highlighting is her own sexual history. And really quick, just to be very clear, because I did want to fact check this briefly. Here is the story where this comes from. Okay, this is from Slate Magazine. I'm going to read their words from the article. This will help give some context, because I'm sure, like all of us, we wonder, where is this coming from? Like where is this attack that Harris slept her way to the top coming from? Here's the whole story. For roughly 1 year in the mid-1990s, so 1 year in the mid-1990s, when she was 29 years old, Harris dated 60-year-old San Francisco politician Willie Brown, who was technically married but had since been separated from his wife since the early 80s. Harris and Brown broke up in 1995, and in 1996, Brown was elected mayor of San Francisco, a position he would hold until 2004. Around the time they were dating, and when Brown was Speaker of the California State Assembly, Brown appointed Harris to the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board and the Medical Assistance Commission. That apparently was how Harris, quote, slept her way into and upwards in California politics by sitting on two boards. So that there it is. There's the smoking gun. She dated someone for about a year or two in the mid 1990s and was put on two state boards, and therefore she has slept her way to the top and is not qualified. How much more sexist can you get? It's mind blowing to me.
It's really disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Andrew, do you need to run?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to run soon. But
Give
yeah,
me
no,
final
I
thoughts.
don't
I would
want
love your thoughts here.
yeah. No, and I mean, yeah, I think the gender traditionalist, sexist kind of thread of what is allowable and not depending on gender, right? Is
Right.
it's always going to be there. It is a key part of this. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to see that.
I think it's only going to get worse. I've seen so much of it by right-wing media commentators like Matt Walsh and others. To see that being said on Fox Business is just it truly is deplorable, and it's just insane. So anyway, Andrew, I know you got to run, so go do your thing. Me and April will finish up the show, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah, totally. So good to see you all.
Good seeing you, man.
Good to see you, Andrew.
All right, April, we're back. It was so good to have Andrew join us. It's always wonderful. So anyway, yeah, I would love some of your thoughts on all of this.
I do have thoughts. Before I get into those thoughts, I do just want to say, you did say Kamala when you introduced that last clip, and it's Kamala.
Did I? You're right.
Yeah.
I know. It is Kamala. I'm trying to get in the habit of just saying Harris, because I had this moment. We did a story series on Instagram earlier this week. I mispronounced her name in the beginning, totally unintentional. It's just how I see it in my head, and it's a fair correction. And then people were like, "Why do we call Biden and not Joe, and Trump not Donald, but we call Kamala and not Harris?" I'm like, great point. So I'm trying to get into the habit of changing my mind on this. So I am so sorry. It's not intentional, but thank you for the shout out, because that is completely not correct. It is Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
Like
I think
comma,
you just watch
okay.
too many right-wing
Yes.
talk shows. And I would say a lot of them intentionally mispronounce her name. But I would actually push back a little bit on I don't think you necessarily have to say Harris. I think it depends on what her campaign is. If she's pushing Kamala, then say Kamala. If she's pushing Harris, then say Harris.
Yeah.
And, both are her name.
Let me just briefly do this. I repent. I repent for mispronouncing her name. I am working feverishly to rewire my brain to say it correctly. Kamala Harris. Thank you. Okay, April, your thoughts on all this.
Okay, so obviously patriarchy. We go straight back to the patriarchy, and just the audacity that a woman, a powerful woman, could only have her position because she slept her way to the top is such an old trope.
It's such an old trope.
It's
gross.
Sexist, and with all the other contexts of which they're saying, it's very racist. And my biggest anxiety around Kamala being the nominee is we're going to see amped up sexism and racism and misogyny. And it's going to be, I think it's going to get really, really nasty. Similar to when Obama ran and when, President Barack Obama was president. A lot of the stuff that I saw directed at Michelle for just,
oh my gosh, totally.
Really disgusting stuff. And so we're going to see a lot of that, unfortunately. We already are. But yeah, it's such a double standard. And as you know, I am a woman, and I'm trying to instill into my girls. I have 2 daughters that they can be whatever they want to be. They can do what they want. That the sky is the limit in opportunity. And it's still like, even though I know that there are sexist men out there,
Yeah.
that there are a lot of people that are still upholding the patriarchy, and that Christian nationalism relies on the patriarchy for its. It's still disheartening to see and to hear this really nasty rhetoric about a woman, whether or not you like Kamala or not. Regardless, like if you disagree with some of her policies, that's one thing. But talk about that. Don't talk about and even we've seen like libs of TikTok, which is a nasty site.
Arguably the worst account on any social media platform ever. Like
Right,
truly abhorrent stuff.
They have incited violence against individuals. Like they call out individuals. Anyway, I could go on a rant on libs of TikTok.
Right.
But
yes.
shortly after it was announced that Biden endorsed Kamala to be the next presidential nominee, libs of TikTok posted a over 2-minute montage of Kamala laughing. And literally was just like, I can't believe, I don't remember what they said, but something like, I can't believe anyone would want this as president. And it was just her laughing. It was just her expressing joy. And I've seen these 2 conflicting narratives a lot since she announced her campaign, that on one hand, you have J.D. Vance saying Kamala's miserable, right? There's this narrative she's a miserable person because she's never bore children.
She's
even
childless, she's a cat lady.
Even though she's not childless, she is a stepmom, which that is a very valid form of parenting.
100%.
She is not childless, regardless. They say she's miserable, but then on the other hand, they're like, she's crazy. Look how much she laughs. She laughs all the time, like that. Like, which one is it? Does she Does she need to stop laughing, or is she miserable?
And is that really your attack? She laughs too much? She's too jovial? Like, is that what we're talking about here? Right? It's interesting. This is really... Back when Obama was running and got elected, I was much younger. I did not have the same understanding of the world that I do now. I was mostly listening to talk radio most of my days. And so a lot of things went over my head. But I'm a different person now. And seeing the things lobbed at Vice President Harris, and between the comments about her previous relationship history and the comments about her laugh, or being on the government dime for 20 years, however J.D. Vance wanted to phrase it, it's just so obvious to me. And then also combining that with the idea of mass deportations, right, which we all know is code for brown-skinned people, and seeing how they pick up stories and blast them to their base that aren't even factual. I just watched John Oliver today on his most recent episode talking about the quote-unquote migrant crime rate wave, which is what Fox and Friends and all those people are pushing, when statistically crime is actually way down in America, and some of their anecdotal evidence that they push wasn't even truthful to begin with, right? It's just so clear to me what embodies, what animates the RNC and the world of MAGA. And one of the things that animates them, whether they realize it or not, is disdain for other people groups that don't act like them, talk like them, think like them, etc., or people that they deem as extra dangerous because they're foreigners. So racism, that's what that is, and it's just so clear to me. Now, here's my thought, though. Maybe some silver lining, and I would like your thoughts on this, April. I did not prep you for this question ahead of time. I did watch Kamala Harris's first speech that she gave since all of this went down regarding her most likely becoming the nominee. And I watched it and I was like, wow, this is a really good speech. First off, just the fact that she's a really good speaker, especially compared to someone like President Biden, which, again, I'm not saying that his policies weren't good, but he's not a great communicator these days for a lot of reasons. Watching her speak and be clear and be very intentional, she name dropped Project 2025. I was like, yes, call it out. She advocated for affordable health care, for livable wages, paid family care, or family leave. And I'm like, yes, these are very common sense ideas. Like they're not crazy at all. They are very sorely needed. They're actual issues that people feel. I felt quite energized, and I was like, wow, there's some serious energy around Harris and what this campaign might become. So I will be honest, before all this, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to see all this. I'm kind of discouraged. Are we looking at a slam dunk Trump presidency in November? I'm not so sure now because of all the energy that her and her campaign is pushing into the base to get them to be motivated to donate and to eventually vote.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way. I thought, I was preparing myself for an inevitable Trump term again. And I definitely think this changes things. I think it's still going to be a tough battle because it's going to get nasty. But yeah, I feel hopeful, honestly. And it's going to be interesting because I know there were a lot of people, we even said this too, of like, how are these are two choices? I knew of a lot of people that were planning to abstain or vote third party because they didn't want to vote for either two old white men. And now, I'm curious if those people will actually put their money where their mouth is, because now you actually have someone who's not an old white man.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be.
And one of the biggest critiques of the Biden administration was, for many people, their ongoing support of the Israeli war machine committing genocide towards the Palestinians, right? And I think Harris has a real shot to kind of reposition herself and the DNC and that world to be a little more, like, no, this is not a good thing. We're not going to support it anymore. I mean, I know Netanyahu spoke the other day at Congress. I don't think Kamala was there or Joe Biden was there. So there is maybe even a shift for people who initially were like, there's no way I'm voting for either of them for various reasons, to, okay, based on what this person might say or how they're acting towards, the Israeli war machine, that might actually shift my vote. So there is a lot of potential for what could be. Now, again, I don't know. I'm totally opining here, just giving my perspective based on the little that I know. But it could be a game changer for a lot of people, and could definitely motivate folks who were maybe not motivated to show up at the polls in November to actually get up and cast their vote for their candidate of choice. So it could be a game changer for sure. And the fact that so far most of the attacks are racist and sexist and not on substance, I think only exposes to the world what is actually embedded in the MAGA movement, what's actually embedded in Trumpism, what's embedded in the RNC, right? And so I think that all of this could play potentially major towards favoring the Harris campaign, if she, of course, chooses to accept the nomination, which there's a 99.9% chance she's going to. They already secured the delegates. I think that the DNC convention that's happening, Democratic National Convention, is going to be so energized and mobilized around Kamala Harris. So it's going to be very, very promising, I think, for the base.
Yeah, I think it'll be very telling who she picks as her VP. If she picks someone that maybe been more vocal for a ceasefire or someone who's been really pro-Israel, I think that will tell a lot on that regard. But yeah, I think here's the thing.
Tell me.
Going back to JD Vance, this is not the thing. This is just a thing.
Okay.
I really think Trump has to be regretting that decision. Trump made that decision thinking that is a decision that someone makes when you think you have it in the bag.
Yeah, totally.
I told Beecher, I was like, Trump is overconfident for that to be his pick. And because JD Vance is not going to bring anybody new to vote for Trump.
Totally.
If anything, I think it could alienate some people. Because he's just, I don't find him that compelling. I don't know if you've seen some of his speeches where he tries to make jokes and he laughs at his own jokes. Like the other day, he was like, that everything we do is racist. I had a Mountain Dew yesterday, and I bet they'll say that's racist. And he's like,
and the crowd's like, womp womp womp. No, they're like, that's not very funny.
Yeah, but I do think. Oh yeah, there's the thing.
There it is. Yeah, I pulled it up.
Did Trump actually think that is? So the headline here says why Trump suddenly thinks picking JD Vance was a mistake. Did
Yeah,
he actually say that?
This is from New Republic. What they're saying is that much of Donald Trump's presidential campaign, including the decision to tap Ohio Senator JD Vance as his running mate, was structured around attacks on President Joe Biden. But then Biden announced Sunday that he was withdrawing from the presidential race altogether. Trump campaign officials acknowledged that Trump selected the inexperienced Vance, charged with all of his techno-authoritarian ideas, to boost support among their own base, not extend a hand to swing voters, according to The Atlantic. Vance was a symbol of the Trump team's assuredness that they would win in 2024. Come Sunday, that assuredness appears to be shrinking. So, and again, like, you and I are not like political commentators. We deal at the intersection of these things, but you could make the argument that President Biden and the DNC people strategists planned that, hey, let the RNC do their thing, let Trump, pick his person, and then after all that's done, let's make this huge change and completely throw them off of their game. If that was planned, I don't know if it was, but if it was, then this seems to be working, because I many reports now are coming in that the Trump team is kind of scrambling and like, oh shit, what are we going to do with technically, or in theory, a Harris-Shapiro ticket, which is Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, right? Very different campaign than a Biden-Harris ticket, for example. So, yeah, definitely possible, 100%.
I do think, I mean, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but if that was intentionally planned to do it after the RNC and they had already planned it, brilliant. Just brilliant move. And, I got to give Joe Biden some props too, because that's not an easy thing to step down and not run for the highest office in the land again, and to actually listen, and he held on for a long time. I don't think it was something he wanted to do, but that he still did it. Like, there's no world in which Trump would ever step down when...
Look, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I don't want to go down the conspiratorial rabbit hole. There's a lot of people with different opinions. I'll tell you this. Politico reported that essentially what happened was two of his closest aides came to President Biden and said, listen, we have new data. There is no path to victory for you if you stay in the race. And that was the moment where Biden said, okay, I'm going to step down. If that's true, then I appreciate him being a man of his word in this case, because he did say in interviews, if there's no path to victory or something changes, I will step down for the sake of democracy in America. So again, if that political report is accurate, then yeah, I'm really happy about that. I know that some people, though, and there have been quite a few more progressive evangelical voices that I tend to like, that have been very, dare I use the term, fundamentalist, and they're like adamant support of Joe Biden, who are like, oh, he was bullied out. This is like the DNC deep state, doing their thing. I don't know, man. Maybe they were just reading the freaking room. Like, there was no energy around a Biden re-election campaign by his own base, especially young people. I mean, Kamala Harris she took over TikTok. She went like viral the other day, full of people in Gen Z and millennials freaking out about the potential of a Harris and X person campaign. So maybe these people just read the freaking room, or like, yeah, we gotta change because there is no path to victory. So it's been a little frustrating to me watching a few people be like, this is what you all get for being so negative towards President Joe Biden. It's like, guys, we have to be realistic here. I'm not going to ignore reality, or we're not going to watch a debate where he does terrible, objectively speaking, and be like, no, guys, everything's fine. No problems at all. Like, everything is totally okay. Sorry, missed me with that. You're never going to see us do that, flat out.
Yeah, I will say I do think Joe Biden saved his legacy by stepping down.
I would agree.
Because he'll go down as someone who was selfless and tried to do the right thing for the country, and but it is funny to me that so many Republicans and MAGA supporters for so long were like, how could you vote for Biden? He's so old. He's the old man. Like, don't vote for the old man. And now they are the ones with the old man. And
now Trump is the oldest person in history to run for president. I mean, it's
right.
It's
and I'm
wild
not,
to me.
and I'm not trying to be ageist or anything, because I think I love the elderly, but just to say, but I do think there should be an age limit to run the United States.
Dude, I think there should be an
America.
age limit for having a driver's license. That's not ageist. That's like, are you able to still drive? And I mean that sincerely. Like there are people that, family members, I'll make it personal. I have family members in my life in their mid 70s, 80s. I would not trust them to drive my children. Like, no. And it's not because it's being ageist. It's just saying, listen, as someone who's older, right? Like, it's just how your body, it's how everyone's body ages, my body included, right? I don't know if like we should have people who can barely see or whatever be on the roads. That's not ageist to say. And the same thing goes for someone that we're going to give nuclear launch codes to. Like, if you're going to govern, in theory, be the leader of the world's largest superpower, yes, I want you to have all of your faculties and all of your wits about you. I absolutely do. That's part of the requirement. That's not a crazy thing to say. But it is ironic, right? Because you're not going to hear from Trump's own base about how old Trump is, even though he is technically the oldest person to run, so it is wild.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
well, and a lot of the same people on the MAGA side were like, Joe Biden's incapable of running. There's no way, he's unfit to be president because he's cognitive declining, and like saying all these things like he should not be the nominee. And now that he's stepped down, they're like, this is unfair to Biden. This was unconstitutional. Like,
no, totally.
Which one did you want? I will say, as someone who's newer to the more progressive side, as someone who is a diehard Republican for a long time.
Yes,
I've actually been very impressed at how Democrats as a whole have rallied around Kamala, like almost instantly. Like
instantly.
My biggest fear of Biden stepping down, which I thought there was no way he would ever step down. I thought, no, he's our candidate. That he's not going to step down. Right. I've just been really. I was worried that there would be, a contested convention, that, people would get real nasty and in trying to bid for that spot. Maybe because I come from Republicans and that seems like something they would do, although they're very loyal around Trump. But I've been very impressed with the unifying camaraderie right now that we're seeing from Democrats overall.
Well,
and I'm wondering too if it's like a lesson learned from 2016. When people didn't necessarily rally all around Hillary because no one really thought Trump had a chance. And so people were like, well, I can clear my conscience and vote third party.
Right.
But it's, I don't know. I'm feeling energized. I know a lot of people are feeling energized. I think it was a great move and for the Democrats, and we'll see what happens.
I'm going to be very interested to see how the DNC convention happens. I'm going to be very interested and we should try and like kind of A and B the difference between like just the two parties and how they function, because I think we're going to see a very different type of convention than what we saw with the RNC, so that'd be very interesting. Why don't we go to a few tweets of the week and then we can wrap up and we'll be done earlier than usual. It's only an hour and 18 minutes in. Can you believe that?
Wow. Look at us.
Look at us.
The days of miracles are not over.
So, okay, we have a few different, you gave me a bunch here, dude. Were there any that you really wanted to
just pick 3.
Oh, you did? I missed that part.
I said, okay, I gave you a bunch. Pick your faves.
I'm just gonna do. You probably did say that, and I didn't listen to you, so that's on me. Okay, let's
listen
start
to
with this
women,
guy.
Tim.
Not my bad. Nick Fuentes. Speaking of racist, terrible people who have now been allowed back on the Twitter platform thanks to Elon unbanning this man. I even feel weird even saying his name because he's so terrible. But keep in mind that Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at his conference a year and a half ago. Okay, keep that in mind. This man denies the Holocaust. He tweeted out, if Trump had been assassinated last week, the presidential election would be between Nikki Haley and Kamala Harris, 2 non-white liberal women who can never win a national primary by popular vote. What a nightmare. So there you go. There you go. This is the same person, by the way, who went after J.D. Vance's wife, who's Hindu. People like Nick went after her hard for that. So again, just once again demonstrates the type of racism that is deeply embedded in some of these spaces. Okay, let's do another one. Oh, Brian Suave. Yeah, okay. So Brian Suave, if you watch this show religiously on YouTube, Brian Suave was at the same event that we covered on Wednesday's episode with Kevin Carnahan. talking about or responding to Stephen Wolf's racist tirade. So that's who we're talking about. Yeah, there was a conspiracy theory going around pushed by right-wing media, like by mainstream people like Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk, that Biden was probably dead because no one saw him in 5 days. So, okay, great. Yeah, thank you. So Brian Suave had to, of course, give a poll, and shocker, 70% of his audience says that Biden's not living, even though he is.
He's dead. Yeah, in their mind.
He's alive. Okay, last one. Why don't we go to... Wait, is this the one I want? No, let's do this one. This is a good one. Let's do a funny one. Speaking of purity culture, the transformed wife. Do you want to read this one, April? It's a real doozy.
I'd love to. Okay, Lori from the transformed wife writes, whenever I bring up bikinis, some women will come back with men in Speedos. The difference is men love looking at women in bikinis. Most women are repulsed by men in Speedos. Plus, not many men wear them. Many women wear bikinis.
What do you think, April? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think someone might like women and not men. Not saying her, but I don't.
That's funny. Yeah, this is okay.
She's just terrible.
They're
she
such
also
bad tropes. Like,
yeah.
like the thing is that, and I believe the data supports this. Like, there's been studies done. Men and women are equally visual when it comes down to like actual studies. It comes down to, like, for most people, preferences. Like, like perhaps it could be body types or what you tend to think is attractive. So it's just funny watching her play into these tropes that, like, as a man, any woman in a bikini to me is automatically like, I just can't stop looking, which is not the case. Like, just to be clear, like, I've seen plenty of women at the beach in bikinis, and most of them I'm like, yeah, it's a body. Moving on, it's just how it is. So it's just funny for her to be like, yes, men love all women in bikinis, but a man in a Speedo, no woman would ever find attractive. Like, I'm not sure that's how it works. I think that there's other factors that go into it.
I think she's projecting some stuff onto everybody.
I mean, April, you're a woman. Are Speedos, like, can they be a thing for women, or do you not really think about it? Like, okay, yeah.
They can be a thing for women.
There you go. Yeah.
Everyone's got their thing. Like, I hate the whole binary thing too, where it's just like all men look at women in bikinis and all women are repulsed by men in Speedos. Yeah. Like, no, that's not true. Also, I will just say, can we pull up one more that's funny, that's not political?
Yes,
pull up Samuel Says.
Oh, I had that one too. Okay, yeah, I got that. Boom.
I just thought maybe this doesn't tickle your funny bone like it tickled mine. But Samuel Say wrote, "Don't look down on professing Christians who walk away from the faith. If it wasn't for the grace of God, you would do the same." I'm like, what?
What does that mean?
I know. What does that mean? Like, does that mean that a lot of it doesn't actually make any sense? And by the grace of God and by white knuckling your faith, you're staying in because it actually makes the most sense to leave fundamentalist Christianity? Is that what you're saying, Samuel? That's how I read it.
Can I tell you a secret? You can't tell anyone, though.
Okay, this is like a YouTube video and a podcast.
Yeah, it's fine. But just between you and me, like, no one else needs to know this.
Yeah,
I know Samuel Say. We've met several times at different events and have shaken hands and have talked. And he's actually quite he's a nice person. Meaning, like, we talk about, like, nerd stuff, like Marvel versus DC. So it's interesting because, like, I could probably message him and be like, bro, what's up with this? I mean, the last time we talked, he wanted me to come on his podcast to talk to him. I was like, yes, I would love to come on your podcast to talk to you. I have so many questions. But yeah, I mean, Samuel Say is an interesting dude for me because he just has some takes where I'm like, bro, where are you getting this from? Like this one. This is one that I would text him and be like, bro, what does this mean? Help me out.
I think this is playing onto what we were talking about earlier, in that you've got to be steadfast in the faith because basically the world is going to try to take your faith from you.
That's right.
We're
the
constantly
progressive Christians.
Right. We're constantly under attack. Satan's always trying to get you to learn something new and think about something else and all of these other things that would hurt your faith or cause you to walk away from your faith. But what I hate about this argument is that it does not address the fact that there are so many things in the world that would cause someone to lose their faith if they look at them. Like if your religion is that fragile, if your belief system is that fragile, then I think the problem is the belief system and not everything else in the world.
100%. I totally agree. Oh, I did it.
We made it through.
I'm going on vacation now for 4 days.
Congratulations. I hope you have a great time.
That actually isn't true. I have to export this video. I have to edit it while we're driving in the car and make sure it's uploaded tonight for YouTube to be posted on Friday.
Oh, Timothy. You know
Poor
what,
me.
though? I did a recap while I was on my 10-year anniversary trip at the beach. So
I guess I can't complain. Awesome. Well, hey, great recap. We'll see what happens next week because the cycle is so crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Friends, go ahead.
I was just saying, I'm tired of living through unprecedented times.
Oh my gosh.
Can we get some normal, just like calm?
Please. Just like
we
a
didn't
week.
even get to everything. There's so many things.
I know.
Ugh.
Well, I guess until next week. Friends, thanks for being here. Of course, we'd love your thoughts, love your comments. We read all of them, good and bad. And make sure you smash the like button if you're watching this on YouTube because likes tell YouTube, oh, people are enjoying this. Let's send it out to more people. So it's a great way to get the word out. All right, I'm going on vacation. Tons of unlimited blueberry coffee and friends and hanging out. I'll talk to you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Finish.